This is an article entitled "The Sabbath," found in the Reformed Presbyterian, November 1838, issue number 5. The language in which the fourth commandment is expressed recognizes the Sabbath as an already existing institution. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. This is not the language of institution, but that which intimates the republication of an already existing institution. There is here nothing said of the appointment of the Sabbath. The precept proceeds on the ground that the Sabbath was already appointed and well known, but it specifies the manner in which the Sabbath should be kept. Keep it holy. The reason given in the precept why the Sabbath should be kept holy is because God, having made all things in 6 days, rested on the seventh and hallowed it. And this, as was remarked in a former part of this discussion, directs us to the time of creation as the period of institution. The force of this argument is felt and admitted by those who deny that the Sabbath was instituted immediately after the work of creation was finished. To rid themselves of the difficulty, they concede that the fourth commandment includes the previous institution of the Sabbath, but hold that the appointment was made when the manna was promised. This was indeed before the giving of the law, although only a few days, or it may have been weeks, and therefore might have been spoken of as something already existing. But it is a groundless assertion that the Sabbath was appointed in connection with the promise of the manna, for as has been proved in the preceding argument, the Sabbath was then spoken of as an existing and well-known institution. In conclusion, we direct the attention of our readers to the objections made by Dr. Paley. The theory presented by him is a perspicuous and well-condensed view of the opinion held by such as are opposed to the commonly received doctrine. Number 1. It is objected that no mention is made of the Sabbath from the time of creation till after the Jews had entered into the wilderness, a period of about 2,500 years. This, to use the objector's own words, appears unaccountable. In answer to this objection, we remark first that although no direct mention is made of the Sabbath during the period spoken of, yet it is not true that there is not ever the obscurest allusion to it, as has been said. There are frequent allusions, and such as are very far from being obscure. The division of time into periods of 7 days, and the performing of religious services at the end of days, as did Cain and Abel, are clearly allusions to the Sabbath as an existing institution. In the second place, the remarkable briefness of the Scripture history embracing a period of 25 centuries furnish the reason why the Sabbath, as well as other important things, is not directly mentioned in the book of Genesis. In the third place, if the objection were sustained, were it considered a sufficient reason for rejecting the primitive institution of the Sabbath because it is not mentioned in the book of Genesis, including a period of 25 centuries, in the same way, and for the same reason, we must conclude that sacrificing was not a practiced institution for the period of 15 centuries, namely from the time of Abel to the deluge. It is a fact also that no mention is made of the Sabbath in the books of Joshua, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, and 1st Kings, embracing a period of 500 years. From these facts, we ascertain that the objection would prove too much, and therefore good for nothing. The silence of the Scripture history relative to the Sabbath is necessarily so brief as that of the book of Genesis, cannot prove that the Sabbath was not kept as a divine institution, and if it could be proved most satisfactorily that the Sabbath had gone into disuse during the patriarchal ages, this could not prove that it had not been instituted at the creation in the face of a plain historical statement containing the institution. Number 2. It is objected that the Sabbath is in Scripture and to have been given and made known to Israel. This interpretation, says Dr. Paley, is strongly supported by a passage in the prophet Ezekiel where the Sabbath is plainly spoken of as given, and what else can that mean but at first instituted in the wilderness? Chapter 20, verses 10 and 11, and Nehemiah 9, verse 12. The answer to this objection is that giving or making known does not in these places signify original institution, as is evident first from the consideration that the statutes and judgments and laws of God are in the same places of Scripture said also to have been then given and made known to Israel. But it will be admitted that the precepts of the law, and it is these precepts that are spoken of in these places, were not first instituted when given and made known to Israel. They were then indeed given and made known, as they were republished, but in no other sense. So was it with the Sabbath. It was then republished, and in no other sense could it be said to have been given and made known to Israel. Thus the Scriptures referred to by Paley to sustain his position respecting the Sabbath destroy the objection. Second, the Scriptures furnish us with a parallel expression which shows that original institution is not implied in the verb to give when used relative to an institution. John 7:22, Moses verily gave you circumcision, not because it was of Moses, but of the fathers. In this place, giving is used in circumstances that preclude primary institution. This right had been given to Abraham in its institution 430 years before it was given by Moses as a part of the Jewish system. And number 3, it is objected that the Sabbath is said to be a sign between God and the children of Israel, Ezekiel 20, verse 12. Moreover, also I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them. We spoke this first by saying that there is no proof that the Sabbath is spoken of in this part of Scripture. It is Sabbaths, and this may refer to some of the other days of rest peculiar to the Jewish dispensation, as the word in the plural is so used in other places of Scripture. But second, though it were admitted that it is the Sabbath that is spoken of here, it would not support the objection, which is evidently founded on a misunderstanding of the nature of a sign. Everything that distinguished the Jews as a people from the heathens around them was a sign, a something peculiar to them as the people of God, and therefore a discriminating work or sign. The precepts of the moral law are in the same way said to be a sign. Thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand. Chapter 6, verse 8. But the moral law was not instituted when it was given to the Jews to be a sign, nor was the Sabbath then instituted.